insurance agent, because it's not like having your car and saying I'm getting a new car and calling Allstate and saying add this to the policy. They want some experience, they want previous boat ownership experience. If not, they want to see that you've had some training. Sometimes these policies will require that you live limited to certain waters. I did a loan recently for some new buyers who bought a lovely new big boat, but basically they didn't have much experience. And their policy said, no further south than the Florida Keys and certain areas of the Bahamas for the first 12 months. Well, that's fine, because 12 months is going to pass very quickly, and they're going to do the intercoastal and come back up this way. So, saying that insurance is one of those things I always tell people to start, when you start with the process of buying the boat and thinking about financing, get in touch with an insurance agent that can work with you. Insurance changes a lot by where you keep the boat, hurricane season, and stuff like that. Like I said, Al will be here talking about insurance more in the next hour, but the banks do require insurance. Additionally, the banks require U.S. Coast Guard documentation, and that's for your protection as well as theirs. That's usually a fee of around $600, $650, depending upon who's doing it, and they require a third-party agent to do it. What it does is it ties the Coast Guard into that lien, and it protects the bank. If you ever need to go get the boat, they call the Coast Guard. You want the boat Coast Guard documentation, because if you're ever in trouble, you want to call the Coast Guard. There's a lot more to what Coast Guard documentation means, and you can go back to these early maritime rules about crossing bows and the first cannon shot and whatever. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know it all, and I don't want to get into all that. Other people can study that stuff. But basically, documentation is a good thing to have. Oftentimes, you'll see boats that have British Virgin Island registry on them. There's a lot of boats with BVI registry in the Caribbean. A lot of them are registered that way because they're owned by foreigners and they're registered with BVI. Or they're owned by Americans who want to have paid crew on the boat. And if you have paid crew on your boat, you can't hire foreigners on a U.S. Coast Guard documented vessel. Many of the charter companies with crew vessels will require that they're BVI because they just get a lot of foreigners down there working in acting staff. Maybe. Sometimes when you get into a higher price boat for your own personal and tax reasons, doing a BVI registration makes sense. When that comes into play, we use some documentation companies and maritime attorneys that work with the banks to do that. It can save you taxes, it can save you duties and customs, and it can help you with your cash flow if you're a net worth and looking to keep some money out of the U.S. and have it taxed differently, particularly if your boat's in charter. Getting onto charter financing, that's very difficult. Charter financing is not an easy thing to obtain. We have a few banks that will do it. They want individuals that have had previous borrowing experience that can pay for the boat without it being a charter. They do not consider charter revenue. It's been a very difficult subject in the last couple of years. We had some banks that were quite active in it. They've since pulled out. One of the reasons banks have pulled out of the charter financing is that probably 10, 12 years ago now, maybe more like 12 to 15 years ago now, there were some not so above board charter companies out there, and they overinflated the prices of the boats. They used discounts for down payments. They built boats they showed boats at the show with all the fancy stuff, and when they ordered and built the boats, they used lesser equipment. So people were buying boats thinking they were getting this size winch, and it was smaller, or this model toilet, and it was a different one. The boats were not delivered as spec, and oftentimes these boats get delivered even into charter service people owners, and you see them. Well, these charter companies took the money and ran, so to speak. They didn't maintain the boats. They did not really deliver, and there were also boats that were created. They created the paperwork for the boat, and the boat never existed. So they had this multiple level of things. All the banks said, we're out of here. We're not doing charter financing. Just about the time they got rid of all this bad debt, bad collateral, 9/11 happened. Many of the charter companies guaranteed revenue. This guarantee will pay for your boat. Well, when 9/11 happened, people did not get on airplanes to go charter boats. And several of the charter companies were having difficult times, and a few of them even closed because they could not guarantee the revenue and they couldn't maintain the overhead. So basically, if you're looking at a charter boat, it's potential revenue. You have to look at it as not a way to pay for your boat. There are people here that will promote boat as a business, and these people will pay for your boat. You can have a boat for nothing. It's really not true. I'm not going to get into the whole side of charter stuff. If you're looking at charter financing and anybody wants to talk to me a little bit more about it, I'd be happy to do that one-on-one after this. But again, it's very difficult. You know, the banks that do it are very limited, and again, it's not an easy thing to do in any of our lending markets today. We cross our fingers and hope we can find banks. You know, hopefully we can do that in the future. Banks are like moving targets too. We can say we have this bank, this bank, this bank, this bank. We have this program, this program, this program, this program. And tomorrow they can say we're out of the marine industry. We're not doing boat loans anymore. And that's happened a lot. And banks merge, and they look at where they're doing their lending. Do they want commercial business? Do they want retail business? Do they want home mortgages? None of them do right now. But again, we try to have a variety of banks that are going to best suit your needs. We can get into talking on levels of what type of qualifications. If you're self-employed, oftentimes if you're self-employed, you're going to look at a no-doc loan because you should pull your income through your business. And we have that available, but we need business. We need good substantial financial reports and asset verification and good income taxes. If necessary, if you're self-employed, if you want to say no doc, well, the no doc is easy to do, but when you fill in on the piece of paper that you've got $800,000 in stocks and bonds, you better be prepared to show us a copy of your portfolio statement. So, the no doc loans are not just fill in the blank and pull your social security number because of the way that the lending guidelines are. They want to see that you say what you are. And again, we can do that for you. I always joke, I always say that my ideal loan customer is a GS-18 employee on its second round of a government job with 2 pensions about to retire who's going to make 3 times the money that they did while they were working. Banks love that. Realistically, 80% of the world is an entrepreneur and makes the world go round because we all work hard and creative businesses and companies and our own finances along the way. So it's one of those things that each individual is different, which is why we always work with a variety of banks. Not every bank is a cookie cutter with the next, and we all have certain banks that we work with that up until a few years ago, some banks would not do catamarans at all. Just one of the largest marine lenders up until about 5-6 months ago did not do sailing catamarans at all. Why? Because their opinion was that all catamarans were in charter companies. And were they burned before? Yes. So they were cut and dry, no sailing catamarans. They would be power cats. They've opened up a little bit. They want to make sure that the boats are not in charter. You have to sign on the dotted lines, boat's not in charter, and it's in the U.S. And again, that it's because they want to protect their collateral. They don't want all the collateral down there. Hopefully we'll